Welcome to our Halloween special. Join us if you dare as we discuss the greatest movies to watch during the Halloween season. That's right, friends. Welcome to our special Halloween show as Tommy and I are going to discuss our favorite Halloween movies to watch during the spooky season. How excited are you, Tom?
Really excited. We're both big Halloween fans, and what better way to celebrate Halloween than to one of the classic horror movies to celebrate this time of season.
We don't have a top 10 that we're going to give you. We're going to run down a whole bunch of movies really quickly for you and see what you think of them. If you guys have any of your favorites, please give us a like and a subscribe, and feel free to share this video and give us some comments down below of your favorite Halloween movies and activities, things you like to do during the season. I'm going to start it off with you, Tommy. Give me a couple of your favorite Halloween movies.
Well, I want to go back to the beginning, really, 1927, the days of silent film, and it's our friend Lon Chaney Sr. in Phantom of the Opera. It's still a great film. His performance, his makeup, which he did on his own, is still effective almost 100 years later. And the great unmasking scene.
Oh, it's one of the greatest scenes in history.
One of the great scenes of film history. And the actress Mary Philbin had not seen the makeup before the scene, so her reaction to him removing his mask and revealing his face is authentic. It's exactly what she was reacting to at the time.
I'm going to start with 1975 in a movie that the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, this is one that you should really see in a theater with a bunch of people, or else it's also a great movie if you have the home video to invite a bunch of friends over and have a theme party for Halloween. It's not a great movie to watch. If you're just watching a movie by yourself and you're sitting there, like you'd watch a normal movie, it's really a terrible movie. But when you have a great party and a bunch of friends over, or else you're in that theater when it's playing, there's nothing quite like it. It's a great experience. So Rocky Horror Picture is one definitely to check out during the Halloween season.
All right. I'm going to stay back in the past a little bit with our next selection, 1941, The Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr., this time with the role of Larry Talbot, a role that he would make famous in cinema history. Great makeup design by makeup artist Jack Pierce. And it's just a really effective movie. Great old Universal films, great use of music, costumes, lighting, just really creating a mood that is really a trademark, for Universal and those great horror films of the 30s and 40s. And a great performance by Lon Chaney. Although he's a horrific monster, you really feel sad for him during the film.
Yeah, you really did. You could relate to him. It was a great performance. You know me, I love the Universal monsters, and there's going to be plenty of those movies on my list as well as we go through this. But I am going to go to 1978 right now for one of the great franchises in this season's history, and the original Halloween movie. And I'm not a big fan of modern horror and the slasher movies and all the blood and gore. I'm not a big fan of what's the movie that's nowadays? It's the three with the clown.
Terrifier.
The Terrifier.
I'm not going to watch that.
It's just something for me. It's too over the top violent. But the original Halloween movie, what I loved about it were the performances. Jamie Lee Curtis was great. Donald Pleasance was great, and it was a smart movie. And if you think about it, there's not really a lot of blood in that original movie. There really isn't. There's only a few kills, but it's the atmosphere, the environment. You can smell the Halloween season.
Absolutely.
And the cinematography, everything is great about that movie. So I'm going to do that, and I'm also going to give a little for another movie. Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist movie, PG at the time, but no one will forget that scene where the guy pulls his face off in the bathroom. That was shocking in 1982 when we saw it, and just another great Halloween. The atmosphere and the performances from Greg T. Nelson and the rest of the cast are it's just a great movie, and a great movie to turn the lights off, turn the volume up, and enjoy Poltergeist and the original Halloween.
Great choices. I personally think that Halloween is the second best horror film ever made, in my opinion. That leaves you to what I think is the best horror film ever made, and that's 1971, The Exorcist. William Friedkin. It's a film that if you've seen it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
I recently watched it, and over 50 years later, it's still just a terrifying film. We're old enough to remember when it came out. It was quite the sensation, and there were ambulances parked outside the theaters. But besides it, it's a truly a great film. Nominated for Best Picture of the Year. It came out. Linda Blair puts in an amazing performance. Let's face it, there are elements of that film that are still really shocking today. In fact, I would say there's parts of the movie that would not be made today.
Well, the crucifix scene alone.
Exactly.
And I'll tell you, if you get a 4K version of that movie, especially the special effects, it looks like it could have been made today still. It really does stand the test of time. Yeah. So great choice. Exorcist, scary movie, hard for me to watch.
It is.
All right, now I'm going to do another two here, and I'm going to go to our master, Alfred Hitchcock. And the first one is going to be Rear Window. And when I mentioned this to you the other day, you said, well, that's not really a horror movie. But if you think about it, the premise is, Jimmy Stewart is injured and he's looking out his window and he sees Raymond Burr's character and he thinks that he's killed his wife. And not only did he kill his wife, but he dismembered her. I think that's pretty horrifying, to think about it. And the scene we mentioned, like when Grace Kelly is going into Raymond Burr's apartment and Jimmy's watching her and Raymond Burr comes into that apartment. It's terrifying.
It is.
And in the scene where Raymond Burr actually realizes that Jimmy Stewart's watching him, and he looks into the camera. Oh my God, I got chills just thinking about it right now. So Rear Window is a great movie to watch during the Halloween season. If not on Halloween night, during the month of October. So I'm gonna really recommend that, and also probably the birth of the slasher movie, of course, Psycho. So what can you say about Psycho that hasn't been said? The shower scene everybody knows. The scene where Martin Balsam is killed falling down the stairs it was shocking at the time, still shocking to this day. The murder, Janet Leigh getting killed in a shower, it's influenced so many movie
it changed the way films were edited from that point on.
And I don't know if that was the first. It seems to me that was probably the first time someone who we thought was the main character is murdered 30 minutes in.
Right.
So just terrifying. And the final scene, when Anthony Perkins is just kind of looking in the camera and talking in the mother's voice. Just chilling. So two more movies to really check out during Halloween: Rear Window, Alfred Hitchcock, and also Psycho.
Great. I want to move to a couple by maybe the greatest horror actor of all time, although that title is very disputable. But I would say Vincent Price. Vincent Price throughout the 50s and 60s was synonymous with horror. He made so many great horror films alongside Roger Corman. And I want to just select two. And one is where he was actually the good guy. And this one is The Fly. And The Fly is a great film, in terms of building up suspense. We often talk, those are the best horror films. The first times you see the main character, he's covered with the towel. And it's that slow unmasking of the fly. But, anyone who's seen that film knows that the real horrific moment is at the end when you've got the fly's, the actor's head onto the fly and he's screaming, help me, while trapped in the spider web. As a child, that absolutely terrified me, and it's still effective today. And I'm going to go with Vincent Price, The Fly. Another great Vincent Price movie, not as well known, but I think it's one of his best, is The Pit and the Pendulum.
Oh, yeah.
Again, one of those Roger Corman films from the early 60s, shot in that beautiful Technicolor. And Vincent Price plays, a kind of as he goes on, he becomes more mad character, and he has access to a dungeon of various torture implements. So as you can imagine, that's not going to end well for some of the characters in the film. But it's just Vincent Price, his ability to convey madness and really his over-the-top style was so instrumental in making these movies great. So I'm going to go with those two.
Well, I'll jump on your Vincent Price wagon and also mention House of Wax, another great movie and just horrifying, the whole premise of it. Just check out House of Wax as well. And when you talk about Vincent Price, whether it was I remember there was a TV show. I think it came out of Canada when we were kids in the '70s, called House of Frankenstein or whatever. And Vincent Price always did little spots in that, where he would tell like spooky poems. And of course, everybody will remember his cameo in Michael Jackson's Thriller. At the end, he was the quintessential voice of Halloween and horror. And oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name of the movie. What was the house?
House on Haunted Hill.
House on Haunted Hill. Another fantastic movie. Great haunted house movie. Yeah. There have been some great haunted house movies to check out. Amityville Horror is another one. But I preferred the book over the movie, to tell you the truth. But it's still a fun watch, Amityville Horror. But House on Haunted Hill, I think, is probably the greatest haunted house movie to check out. It's great, and that black and white vibe is awesome. Mm-hmm. So you go ahead, bud.
Next thing, a selected film by kind of infamous director Roman Polanski is 1968's Rosemary's Baby with Mia Farrow. It's a truly unsettling film. As you watch it, the vibe that is created in the film, it's masterful performance by Mia Farrow. It truly is just, again, their mounting dread and then the revelation of horror at the end. Yeah. The last scene, and is, if you've seen it once again, it's the kind of scene that's going to stick with you. It's still an unsettling, disturbing film experience, but it's just a great example of how to make a horror film with all the elements that you need to create terror in your viewer. I go with Rosemary's Baby. Another one is a made-for-TV film, which some people might find unusual, but it's 1978's ABC's miniseries based on Stephen King's Salem's Lot.
Oh, yes. David Soul, right?
Yeah, David Soul. That's a great film. And if you've seen it, you do remember the floating boy outside the window, which at the time was terrifying to a lot of middle America viewers, not used to seeing something like that on primetime television at the time. It's a great film. It does justice to Salem's Lot, which is a great book. Yeah. David Soul puts in a great performance. Everyone involved, is really, really good in the roles that they have. And there are elements to that film that, again, today are still really terrifying. So I'm going to go with Salem's Lot.
Well, I'm going to give you 4 Stephen King movies that I recommend during this season if you get a chance to watch. Number 1 would be Christine, just a fantastic movie from the 80s. The metamorphosis of the main character turning from the nerdy kid into the epitome of evil is just fascinating to watch. So give Christine, fun movie to watch. And also the old man from Home Alone.
Yes.
It's terrifying in Christine.
He is.
So I'm also going to give you Carrie from 1976. Great movie, one of John Travolta's first movie roles. Sissy Spacek, her breakout role. Just a terrifying, fascinating movie. The scene with the mother at the end gives me chills. Check that out if you can.
I didn't want to interrupt, but I had to say Sissy Spacek's performance in Carrie, I feel, is probably the best single performance in the history of horror films. Well, she won the Academy Award for it, and again, she conveys the frightened, confused, but ultimately vengeful, young girl in a way that is just still today just jaw-dropping.
Well, now I'm going to jump into Stephen King, The Shining, and Jack Nicholson. There's so much. What can you say about this movie? There's so many classic scenes. I've watched this movie probably 10 times and I still don't understand it really, but it's just fascinating watching the performances. It's sad thinking what Shelley Duvall went through in that movie. For instance, she didn't know about the axe going through the door in that famous Here's Johnny scene. So when you see her screaming, those screams were actual screams of terror. She had no idea that was going to happen. And the director Stanley Kubrick kind of traumatized her that entire movie. And I don't know if you know what happened to her in her later life. If I think part of it could have been a result of that movie, because she was traumatized dearly. But her performance was incredible. I love Scatman Crothers in that movie, and Jack Nicholson. So many amazing lines. Just one of my favorite performances. And then to finish off my Stephen King rant, I'm going to say both the 1990 version miniseries of It with Tim Curry as Pennywise, great performance by him, and you get to see actors like John Ritter in a completely different role. And also the two movies that they made more recently, I thought were really, as I said, I don't really like a lot of modern horror movies, but I really did enjoy the two It movies from the last couple of years. So check out, those are my four favorite Stephen King adaptations of movies. So I recommend them all highly.
I'm going to move to 1983 now, which I believe is the best werewolf movie ever made, and that's An American Werewolf in London.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Great film, great makeup. The transformation effects are superb. Again, the atmosphere that's created in the pub, and then later there's this horrific dream sequence that is still, knocks you off your feet today. But that's a great film, and there's been a lot of good werewolf movies over the years, but I think that American Werewolf in London is the quintessential werewolf film.
And it has humor. And John Landis, this is made by the director that directed Animal House, right. Trading Places, and also the infamous Twilight Zone movie. Right. So yeah, great try. I forgot all about that one. All right, now what I want to do is I want to kind of jump in to, we mentioned some of them already, the Universal movies, and I'd like to get a little take on our between Universal horror movies and the Hammer series. Right. And I'm going to start off, I'm really into the Universal, and I know you love the Hammer, so I'm going to give two recommendations right away. The original Dracula, I don't know if it's my favorite movie. Bela Lugosi, of course, whenever anybody imitates Dracula, they're imitating Bela Lugosi. But it kind of had, I thought Dwight Fry was great, and it is Renfield, and but the ending kind of left me a little dry.
I agree.
It just kind of dies off screen. Yeah. But the atmosphere was great, and it was the beginning and the start of the Universal series of movies. So I recommend Dracula to everybody who just loves movies. And there you go. There he is right there. And of course, you got to talk about Frankenstein, the original Frankenstein. I think the greatest horror movie and the greatest story of all time. Frankenstein, just the man's obsession with creating a man, and a scene in that movie where Dr. Frankenstein says, now I know how it feels to be God. Right. That was cut from the movie, or the original cuts, and it was only recently added onto that movie. But it just one of the greatest stories of all time. And the performances in the movie and the atmosphere in the movie are just phenomenal. Yeah. So give us your take on the Hammer versions of those.
I think, the Hammer versions went in a different direction. They couldn't obviously use anything resembling the makeup of the Universal films for trademark purposes. Although Universal distributed the Hammer films in the United States.
If I can interrupt you, I should have mentioned too, when I mentioned about Dracula and everyone, Boris Karloff, that voice, that's the voice of the Monster Mash,
right?
And the Grinch, and he was when you mentioned Carrie and Sissy Spacek, I think that might be one of the greatest all-time performances in a horror movie. So I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, absolutely.
I forgot to mention Boris Karloff. How can you do that when you're talking about Frankenstein?
So the Hammer films went in a different direction. Technicolor, which you mentioned before, they amped up the gore quotient. The Universal films, they didn't show blood. They didn't show the vampire's fangs going into his victim's neck. Everything was suggested, which is incredibly effective in those films. Well, Hammer, it was a new world. It was a post-atomic bomb world. It was a world that was moving quickly in terms of technology, and mores were changing, and they jumped on that, and they took the classic films in a different direction by introducing those elements, sexiness, Hammer glamour. A lot of the great starlets that started Hammer films, Ingrid Pitt and Valerie Leone, right. They made the films very enjoyable for us as young boys. But really, they took the films in a different direction, but they maintained the same quality of film, Gothic story, the lavish sets, the music, really well done, although different than Universal movies, just a continuation.
I prefer Christopher Lee's Dracula over Bela Lugosi's, even though Bela is the more iconic.
Right. Christopher Lee's Dracula really comes across as a ferocious tower of strength and viciousness. Right. He does a fantastic. He played Dracula in 7 films.
Peter Cushing.
Yeah, and then Peter Cushing, the perfect hero to the antidote of the horror Dracula. Peter Cushing throughout Hammer films is a rock steady performer. You can always count on him giving his best in any role he was in. He ended up in Star Wars later in his career. But Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, who were actually lifelong best friends, really created that dynamic duo of Hammer films. And along, as I said, with the gore quotient in the sexiness of the female leads, really took the classic monster in a different direction, but just as effectively.
I love all the Frankenstein movies in that series. It's very hard to. I love them both, right. And I think some of the movies when you talk about Frankenstein, and that it was the first movie universe,
right?
The universal universe of the monsters. You look at movies, The Bride of Frankenstein may be better. Yeah. Than the original.
I agree.
Frankenstein. The great scenes with the blind man.
Yeah.
And how Mel Brooks did the great spoof of Young Frankenstein, where darts. But he actually does that in the movie where he takes the darts and puts it in his arm, and it just great. The great atmosphere of the Bride, and I love the Son of Frankenstein.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you already mentioned Wolfman meets Frankenstein. That to me that was the end. I know there were other movies. People mentioned like the Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, and I think it was House of Frankenstein and stuff. I didn't like the movies that came out in the 50s maybe, but or the late 40s. But I thought that initial four of Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, and Frankenstein meets Wolfman were just, you have to watch them. If you love Halloween, you have to watch those movies.
Absolutely. And as the 60s went on, and as I said, the Hammer was increasingly up against studios that are producing a lot more challenging films. The 60s changed cinema and it introduced concepts and images that beforehand would have been forbidden or unacceptable, and Hammer had to keep up with that, and they produced some really good films like Dracula Prince of Darkness is a later film in the 60s, and Lust for a Vampire and Vampire Lovers with Ingrid Pitt, 1972, a really great vampire film in a lot of ways, and again with the focus on female vampires. But again, the sets, the design, the music, Hammer had an incredible way of, as Universal had earlier, of putting all the elements together to create an atmosphere, really a world that you could inhabit as you watch the films.
Well, I'll also give you a Hammer film. I believe it came out around 63 or 64, around that time period. Oliver Reed, Wolfman. Yeah. Again, they took the famous stories from Universal and they remade it, and I thought that was a great version of Wolfman with Oliver Reed, and also the Phantom of the Opera that came out. Michael Gough, is that how you pronounce his name?
Michael Gough, yeah.
Gough, who would go on to be maybe people more in our generation remember him as Alfred in the Batman the Tim Burton Batman movies. He played Alfred, but he was in a lot of Hammer movies, and he was great in the Phantom of the Opera.
The opening sequence of Phantom of the Opera is the camera slowly moves to the subterranean lair up until the eye shot through the leather mask is really effective. Startling. When I was a kid, that's one of the first scenes in a horror film I could remember that really scared me.
Well, before I go on to our final movies, I'd like to give an honorable mention to some TV shows to watch. This is always a great time of year to go and watch the original Munster TV show. There's only 2 seasons of it. Yeah. We saw those reruns, and you thought that there was like 20 seasons, and there were only 2 seasons.
Same ones
over and over again. And the Addams Family, of course. Yeah. Great. There is a more modern, the Wednesday. I enjoyed that on Netflix. So if you got Netflix, go and watch Wednesday. I really enjoyed that as well. And actually, Netflix also has on it the remake Rob Zombie made of the Munsters. It got a lot of negative press, but I didn't think it was that bad. It's a kid movie, more or less. You didn't like it? Well, if we liked everything, we'd be boring.
That's right. It would be no fun.
Yeah. So no, but the Munster TV shows, and also it's on Prime if you get a chance to look it up as a music fan and musician. Alice Cooper did a My Nightmare. It was called Welcome to My Nightmare. which featured Vincent Price, and it's a bunch of his songs. They kind of tell a goofy story, and it's very 70s cheesy, but it's a lot of fun and good music, and it's cool to see Alice Cooper tap dance dressed up with zombies and stuff. So if you get a chance, Welcome to My Nightmare with Alice Cooper. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a fun watch during the season. But I'm gonna give you my final couple movies here, and then I'll let you finish off. I love watching these movies. I start October 1st, which is, we're filming, it's October 1st. So I started earlier today my marathon of horror movies, and I love the classics. And I started with King Kong from the original King Kong movie, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde from 1932. Frederick Mark won the Academy Award for that, and there's only, you said Sissy Spacek won for that, for Carrie as well. I think they're the only two that I can think of in the horror that ever won the Academy Award for Best Actor. But King Kong, now watching it today, the dialogue is really cheesy, but the special effects in that movie, considering this is what 1931 that this came out, were incredible for the time, and it inspired directors like Peter King and like Steven Spielberg, who would go on to make some of the greatest movies of all time. And there are some really chilling scenes in King Kong where he's eating people, where he's stepping on people, and you see dinosaurs. You see the huge snakes and birds. Fly. It's really a fun movie to watch. Of course, forget about the dialogue. It's especially in these days, it's horrible. It's campy, but it's a great story, and for its time, great special effects. And as far as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, it still lives up to a great performance by Frederick March. The special effects when he turns into Dr. Jekyll, it's still one of the greatest scenes of all time. I rank it right up with the Phantom of the Opera and that opening scene where he exposes himself and you see what he looks like for the first time. Just a great movie, and a movie that shocked me. We talked about this when I was coming down here. There's actually nudity in this movie. And it was a very after watching King Kong right before it and seeing the dialogue there, I thought this was so intelligent. The writing and the performances were just so great. So I'm just, those are my first two movies. And tonight or early tomorrow, before I have to work, I'm going to watch the last one I'm going to recommend, and that's The Invisible Man from early 1930s. Just fantastic. Claude Rains.
With nothing but his voice. It's
nothing
so
but his
effective.
voice. And it's such, the special effects, again, I mentioned, for being a movie.
They hold up.
They really do. We're talking in the 1930s. This is almost 100 years old, these movies, and they really hold up. And it just goes to show you, if you have great performances and you have great storytelling, you're going to have a great movie regardless of the year. Great. So those are my picks. Let's get your final picks, Tom.
I'm going to go to 1954, my favorite of the Universal horror films, although it was released years after the golden age of the Frankenstein and Wolfman films, and that's A Creature from the Black Lagoon. Just a great story about man interfering where he shouldn't. It's a great revenge drama. It's just the creature is minding his own business in his world, and he's invaded, and the film is about his just merciless revenge and his methodical destruction of everybody on that boat, one after another. It's really effective. The costume is great. Ben Chapman in the costume is really effective. The gills breathing, and the underwater sequence when he's shadowing obviously Julia Adams underwater is probably the most famous part of the film. But it's a great movie, and filmed, although it's filmed in Silver Springs, Florida, it really brings you into what seems to be the Amazon rainforest. So
great pick, great pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to wrap it up with the more recent film. As Tom mentioned, him and I are not the biggest fans of more modern horror films because they tend to amp up the gore quotient to a part that
Too much.
places acceptable for me. But there is a film with a fair amount of gore, but it's so effective, so scary, and perfect for Halloween. For earlier part of this century is Trick or Treat. If you've never seen Trick or Treat, do yourself a favor and watch it. It takes place on Halloween. It's a film that it's several different short stories wrapped around in like a framing sequence. You might have seen the character Sam, who became famous over the years. Young boy, he's kind of got a sack for a mask and an orange jumpsuit. Trick or Treat is really scary, really evocative, and the perfect movie to watch on Halloween night itself.
Well, and if you got kids, real quick shout out to movies like Monster Squad was really fun for kids to watch.
Yeah.
And of course, our favorite cartoon, Scooby Doo.
Yeah.
Those are even the live action movies were fun to watch. Right. I thought, and I can't believe we forgot to even mention these two movies. In the franchises in general, Night of the Living Dead, that started it all with zombies, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a horrifying film. There's no other way to put it. Just the way
speechless watching, much like The Exorcist.
Right, the way that film was put together, just the atmosphere that's created is just grimy and grainy in a perfect 70s way. Leatherface is just a terrifying creation. That's a truly frightening movie that still today, as we said, it really holds up to say the least.
Well, Leatherface is right up there with Jason,
absolutely.
And we didn't mention the Friday the 13th movies.
Yeah.
They really weren't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
But when you talk about Nightmare on Elm Street with Freddy and Michael Myers and Jason, and I think Leatherface belongs maybe ahead of them all.
Yeah,
the
original. Yeah. And the other one you mentioned was, I'm getting old.
Was that Freddy?
Texas Chainsaw Massacre and
Night of the Living Dead.
Night of the Living Dead. That's a film that it really set the standard for everything that's come later in terms of zombies. And for me, the most frightening part of the film, now I have to confess, I saw that movie the first time at the drive-in with my older brother. I was quite young. And the part that has always stuck with me is the scene at the beginning when it's during the day and you see in the distance the first zombie walking behind Barbara, the main character. Mm-hmm. Just a short little take, but this idea is such a horror in broad daylight. To me, was just really terrifying, and that's a film that, again, you look at it and it's created so many tropes that have been followed in movies and television shows forever, but it's an original. And I do have to mention, George Romero took a big role there, or a big risk there in casting a black man. It's the first time a black character or black actor had ever been made the main character in a horror film. So just shout out to Romero for that.
Right. Well, that's going to do it for our special on Halloween. This is such a great and fun time of the year, and I hope you've enjoyed our suggestions to you. There's so many more. I'm sure you guys have. Give us some thoughts down in the comments below. If there are any of your favorite horror movies, if we didn't mention them to us, and we'll try to check them out as well. But I had fun. This is a fun little idea.
I enjoyed doing this.
Yeah, this is a really fun episode, I think, and I hope you enjoyed it. And happy Halloween. Be careful out there, but wear lots of cool makeup and some scary costumes. Give the kids some candy.
Enjoy the fright.
And scare some people. And of course, Go Bills. We'll see you, folks.